It's a moving exploration of the effects of the invisible injuries inflicted by war, with a plot that only happens because Nog does not own a pair of headphones. This is a review of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, It's Only a Paper Moon. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know how emotionally devastating a story about an alien playing a virtual reality simulation of 1960s Las Vegas can be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. Here we go again, yet another Star Trek episode that's just a relic of its era with no relevance whatsoever to our present time. Nog's coming home! He was injured recently during the siege of AR-558, which was depicted in an earlier episode that I can't remember the title of, and he's been recovering for the last few weeks at a starbase. Rom and Lita are anxious to see him, but Rom's also worried. What if I say something that makes him uncomfortable? Rom asks. Like, how's your new leg? Or, what happened to your old leg? Did they let you keep it? Or, can I have your old leg as a souvenir to show visitors to our home what a brave son I have? Ooh, could I make your leg into a lamp? Station's counselor Ezri tries to reassure Rom that his fears are misplaced. She's like, as long as you're not a nervous weirdo around him, everything will be fine. The entire senior staff is gathered in the cargo bay to welcome Nog home. He's the last one off the transport ship, and he comes out walking with a cane. He gets a round of applause and some good-natured ribbing about being on medical leave. Sisko informs him they're having a party for him tonight, but Nog says, actually, can I just go home? A little later, Ezri is talking with Nog in his quarters. Nog's not really in a conversational mood. He's been talking with doctors and therapists ever since he was injured, and he's kind of done. Oh, also, he resents the implications that have been made about his use of a cane with his artificial leg. I know the doctor from the starbase told you I don't need the cane, Nog says to Ezri. He told you my new leg works perfectly, and the pain that's causing me to limp is all in my head because I'm crazy. He didn't say you were crazy. He didn't? Of course not. That would be ableist. He said you were bonkers. Nog is blowing off his physical therapy sessions and sleeping most of the day, which worries his crewmates, but Ezri recommends just giving him some time and letting him decide what he wants to do. It seems like the main thing Nog wants to do is listen to Vic Fontaine's version of I'll Be Seeing You. He first heard the song when Dr. Bashir played it in the immediate aftermath of his injury, and it made him feel better. Nog's been playing the song non-stop since he got home, and his roommate and best friend, Jake, finally has enough and says, hey, I'm trying to be helpful in your time of need, but if I have to hear that song one more time, I'm going to stab myself in the ears with my favorite pen. You want to keep listening to that song? Go to the Holosuite. Or come up with some way to listen to music privately so no one around you can hear it. No, that's too far-fetched. Just go to the Holosuite. So Nog goes to the Holosuite, runs Vic Fontaine's program, and requests that Vic sing I'll Be Seeing You. Vic sings it, and sings it, and sings it, until even he gets tired of it. Speaking of tired, Nog wants to go to bed, but he doesn't want to go home. So he asks Vic if he can stay here in the Holosuite. Vic says, sure, kid, I've got a spare room in my hotel suite. You can crash with me tonight. Can I also crash with you tomorrow night, and every night after forever? What? Nog starts living in Vic's Holosuite program full-time. He's able to do this because Starfleet regulations allow him to choose his own rehab facility, and he selects Vic Fontaine's hotel in Las Vegas circa 1962. Ezri has a chat with Vic to make sure he knows Nog's situation, and Vic's like, mellow out, dollface, stay off my back and I'll wean him off that kooky walking stick toot sweet. At first, Nog just kinda hangs out at Vic's place. He watches Shane on TV because apparently Shane is the only Western characters in other shows are allowed to watch. I love Shane. Shane's a great film, but can we reference another Western, please, at some point? I'm just asking. Anyway, Vic invites Nog to come downstairs to watch him do his act, and to make sure he looks his best, Vic gives Nog a new cane, a replica of a cane Errol Flynn used to have, complete with hidden cigarette lighter in the head. Vic's like, now be careful with that cane, it's fragile, so you might not want to put your full weight on it. That won't be a problem, I don't need to put my full weight on it since the pain in my leg is a psychosomatic response. Vic, I'm your friend and you tricked me! Jake shows up at Vic's club with a date and joins Nog at his table, and that doesn't go well. Jake goes to get some drinks, and his date, Keisha, gets on Nog's bad side by calling him a hero, which Nog does not want to hear. Nog tells Keisha and Jake to get lost. Jake's like, "What's your problem, Nog?" And Nog's like, "My problem is I just hate seeing unpunched Jake faces. Let me fix that." And he flips the table and punches Jake, and hey, he's moving pretty good without the cane. Did beating up his best friend cure him? It always worked for all of my best friends. Vic throws Nog out of the club for starting a fight. Later, after the show, Nog promises Vic it will never happen again and asks to be allowed to return to the club tomorrow night. Vic says, "I'm bushed. You've had my program running so long I don't know whether to scratch my watch or wind my ass. But before I go horizontal, I gotta get my books in order or else Uncle Sam's gonna come down on me like a ton of bricks." Given that he's a Ferengi and therefore genetically predisposed to be good with money, Nog offers to get Vic's accounts in order. Vic's like, "Thanks a million, Pally. I'm gonna hit the rack and catch a few Z's." Vic, when you sleep, do you dream? "Yeah, of holographic sheep. Now can the questions, Egghead, and balance my checkbook." Nog not only becomes Vic's accountant, he gets more involved in running the club in general. He chats up the customers. He convinces Vic to pursue an expansion of the casino. He really seems to be emerging from the dark cloud he was under following the siege of AR-558 that we saw in that previous episode, whatever it was called. Rom and Lita drop by the club and are happy to see Nog doing so well. He's still carrying the cane, but he's no longer limping. Esri is here too. She pulls Vic aside to suggest that it might be time to start nudging Nog to leave the holosuite. So that night, after the show, Vic returns to his suite to find Nog going over the blueprints for the casino expansion, and he tells Nog it's time for him to go home. His real home. "But this place is real to me," Nog says. "And it's real to you too." "Sure, it's real to me, but I'm not real. The only thing real here is you. Before you moved in here, my program never ran for more than a few hours at a time. Now I know what it's like to sleep in a bed every night, to read the paper, to play cards with the boys in the band, to fire my bartender for skimming from the till, to be intimidated into rehiring the bartender because he's the nephew of the mob boss who owns this hotel, to allow my club to be used to launder money from that mob boss's drug dealing operation, to have a life. And now I want to return the favor and give you your life back." Then Vic ends his own program, leaving Nog alone in the holosuite. Nog tries to run Vic's program again, but he can't get it to work. Chief O'Brien stops by and tells Nog that Vic is more complex than a typical hologram, and part of that is his ability to turn himself off and not allow himself to be turned back on if he doesn't want to be. After O'Brien leaves, Vic reappears and once again tells Nog to leave the holosuite. Nog tearfully insists that he can't, that he's scared. Scared because when the war started, he was eager to prove himself, and he saw a lot of terrible things, but he never thought anything would actually happen to him. And then it did. And if he can lose his leg just like that, anything can happen. He could die tomorrow. "I don't know if I'm ready to face that," he says. Vic tells Nog, "If you don't face that, and you stay here, eventually you'll be as hollow as I am. You've got to play the cards life deals you. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose, but at least you'll be in the game." Nog understands and leaves the holosuite. After he goes, Vic picks up Nog's cane, his real cane, which has been left behind. "Crazy, man. I mean real cuckoo." Nog meets his family, Rom, Lita, and Quark, outside the holosuite, gives them a hug, tells them he's not okay, but he will be. Then, later, he returns to the holosuite, in uniform, back on duty, starts up Vic's program, and informs Vic that, to thank him for everything he did, Nog has arranged for Vic's holosuite program to be kept running continuously from now on, so Vic can continue to have the life he first experienced when Nog was staying with him. Vic celebrates by singing, "I've Got the World on a String." And that's the end. One of the many things that makes Deep Space Nine such a great series is the knack its creators had for developing complex, compelling characters. The recurring characters on Deep Space Nine had more depth than the regulars on most other series. Nog might be the best example of that. He goes from juvenile delinquent to promising Starfleet cadet to wounded war veteran, and it works every step of the way. I always get a few surprised reactions from viewers when I cite this fact, but Nog only appears in 45 episodes of Deep Space Nine. That's slightly more than 1/4 of the series. Feels like that number should be higher, doesn't it? Of those 45, It's Only a Paper Moon is the best. Maybe a few of you disagree, but I'd bet not many. Most of us seem to agree that not only is this Nog's best episode, it's one of Deep Space Nine's best episodes. Why? I think it's because the episode does what great science fiction, hell, what great storytelling, regardless of genre, does. It shows us a character having an experience most of us have never had in a way we can understand and relate to. I've never been to war. I've never lost a leg. I've never had to deal with a trauma, physical or psychological, as serious as the one Nog struggles with in this episode. I don't know what that's like, but I know what it's like to be miserable and surrounded by well-meaning people who are trying to make you happy. I know how infuriating that can be. I know how it feels when someone is trying to help you by getting you to talk about what the problem is, but you don't want to talk. You just want to be left alone. And I know what it feels like to just escape reality, pretend your problems don't exist, and lose yourself in fantasy. I know how seductive, how convincing that false comfort can be. So do a lot of you. And some of you know what Nog's going through better than Nog does because you actually are wounded veterans. You have dealt with or are dealing with the sort of real trauma that Nog's story dramatizes. It's Only a Paper Moon originally aired in late 1998, a time of relative peace for us in the United States, 8 years after the Gulf War, 3 years before 9/11 and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that would follow it. But no matter when it was made, and no matter when you happen to be watching it, the episode will always be relevant because war, the horrific toll it takes on those who experience it, soldier and civilian alike, is something we must never be allowed to forget. The fear that Nog describes to Vic isn't the exclusive property of war veterans. Anyone who has experienced a brush with death, who has survived a natural disaster or a mass shooting, here in the United States the two are regarded as basically the same thing, knows what Nog is talking about when he describes that frightening realization of, oh my God, it could happen to me after all. It's scary confronting the fragile and capricious nature of life, accepting that our fate is never truly in our hands, admitting that our lives could be irrevocably changed or suddenly ended by things we have no control over. That's not just life for a Star Trek character, that's life. No wonder Nog wanted to live in the holodeck. And no wonder he found the world of Vic Fontaine so appealing. A fantasy version of 1960s Las Vegas, great music, great atmosphere, sharp-looking clothes, all the class with none of the racism and sexism and organized crime that permeated the real Las Vegas. Who wouldn't love this place? Well, Captain Sisko for one, but that's a different episode. Vic Fontaine himself is a big part of the appeal of the fantasy. Like his holographic Vegas, Vic is the best-case scenario of a mid-century American traditional pop singer, the ultimate nice guy Frank Sinatra type, charming and witty, helpful, wise, and man, can he ever swing! Vic undergoes some character development as well, and James Darren shows us that Vic isn't nearly as hollow as he keeps telling Nog he is. We can get into a philosophical discussion over whether or not Vic really cares about Nog or if he's just behaving like he does because that's how he's programmed, but to me, that's beside the point. Darren plays the part like Vic really cares. Through his performance, he suggests an inner life for Vic and imparts a soulfulness to a character who could very easily have remained a stereotypical lounge singer, a funny anachronism in the futuristic sci-fi show. As long as I'm praising James Darren's performance, I should mention one of the most important parts, his singing. We hear Darren singing Vic Fontaine's renditions of standards from the Great American Songbook, like I'll Be Seeing You, I've Got the World on a String, and of course, the title track, It's Only a Paper Moon, and they're all terrific. Though They may be a little too terrific because the creators of the episode couldn't resist ending the episode with Vic crooning his version of I've Got the World on a String to celebrate his newly permanent residence in the holosuite. The problem I have with that is, this is Nog's episode. This is Nog's best episode. It's Vic Fontaine's best episode too, and he gets some very nice moments, but the story's not primarily about him. It's about Nog. I think we should have ended on Nog. It's not a critic's job to rewrite the episode, especially over 25 years after the fact, but I can imagine a few minor ways they could have altered the presentation of that final scene so the parting shot was Nog's rather than Vic's. I love Vic, but turning the final moments of this episode over entirely to him feels wrong. It feels doubly wrong given how excellent Aaron Eisenberg's performance as Nog is here. His range is truly impressive, showing us Nog as painfully withdrawn in the early scenes, happy and engaged with life in the Vegas program in the middle portion, raw and vulnerable during his climactic breakdown with Vic. He's been an interesting, entertaining supporting player before, but with this episode, he steps into the lead and carries the entire show. He gets an assist from Darren for sure, but this is his episode from the moment he steps into it, and I just wish it had ended with him stepping out of it. That's the only flaw worth mentioning that I find, though. The script by Ronald D. Moore from a story by David Mack and John J. Ordover keeps things focused on Nog's journey up until those closing moments. There's no B story. There's an important supporting role for Ezri, and Jake shows up long enough to complain about the song and then get punched, but most of the others in the cast make only very brief appearances in short cutaways where they express their concern and skepticism regarding Nog's use of the holosuite. There is time for several characters to chime in while making fun of Bashir's collection of holoprograms, which is delightful, but it's mostly the Nog and Vic show. The episode is well directed by Anson Williams, who does his best work by just allowing Aaron Eisenberg to anchor the frame. The most memorable shots are those showing Nog on his own, emerging from the airlock, leaving the cargo bay, standing in the deactivated holosuite, small in the frame, alone, isolated. That repeated visual reinforcement of Nog's separation from the other characters makes this shot, when he embraces his father, stepmother, and uncle after leaving the holosuite, all the more meaningful. I suppose you could criticize the show by saying its handling of trauma is too glib. Like Chief O'Brien in the episode Hard Time, Nog experiences a life-changing trauma, but by the end of the episode seems to have mostly gotten a handle on it, and it doesn't really come up again. Fair point that trauma doesn't work that way in real life. Hey, I've made lots of jokes about how easily Star Trek characters are able to shrug off the harrowing experiences they endure on a weekly basis, and I ain't stopping now. But given the episodic nature of the show, and the fact that Nog isn't even a series regular, I think the creators deserve a lot of credit for spending an episode on Nog dealing with the aftermath of his injury and war experience, and suggesting that it's something he will have to continue dealing with, even if we don't really see him dealing with it after this. It's Only a Paper Moon is a heavy episode. The music and the 1960s Vegas setting make it fun and watchable, but underneath that is some very serious stuff. The story of a young man who has been physically and emotionally broken and isn't sure he's ever going to heal. Considered in the context of other Holodeck episodes, it plays like a grimmer variation on Hollow Pursuits, the TNG episode that introduces Lieutenant Barclay, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. In that episode, Barclay takes refuge in holodeck fantasies to escape his social anxiety. Nog does something similar here in an attempt to escape the fear and pain he lives with due to his war experience. It shows us how fantasy can be useful for rest and recovery, but also how that therapeutic quality can turn so easily into a trap. But despite its dark and sadly perpetually relevant themes, it's not a depressing episode. It shows us that life is worth the risk of living it. That if we can endure the bad days, we'll be able to enjoy the good ones. Ultimately, it concludes on a note of hope and celebration. It tells us, to paraphrase Nog, things aren't okay now, but they will be. Is that true? I don't know. Some of it will be up to us. The promise of Star Trek isn't that the future will be better, but that it can be. In the end, that's enough for Nog. And it will have to be enough for us, too. Those are my thoughts on It's Only a Paper Moon. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next week for a review of another Holodeck episode. There are other noteworthy Holodeck shows on Deep Space Nine, but those will have to wait for another batch, because next time we are hopping aboard the Starship Voyager, which did so many Holodeck episodes. I'm only reviewing 2 of them in this batch, and the first is a show from Voyager's 3rd season called Worst Case Scenario. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.